This is pretty long problems. I may split this into two videos, so kind of stay with me. But this is going to be a good overview of some transactions and some budget comparisons and kind of getting an idea of looking at the big picture. And I'm working out of chapter 4, and I'm on problem number 24. And you're given the budget with estimated revenues and appropriations. You're given encumbrances issued against the appropriations during the year. So hopefully this terminology is familiar to you at this point. And then you're given the current year's tax levy, estimated uncollectibles. You're given tax collections. You're given personnel cost. Make sure I'm on the right. Okay. You're given invoices for all items ordered and invoices for items received, and then revenue coming from other than taxes collected, and then payments on vouchers payable. So we're given a general fund balance, unassigned account, has $96,900, and they ask us to record the transactions in the general journal form for fiscal year 2020 in both the general fund and the governmental activities general journals. So I'm going to work through these, and I'll probably pause the video and put some information up so that you don't have to listen to me type. But I want you to see what this looks like, again, kind of big picture. Okay, so I started out just with some headings so you can kind of see how we're going to set this up. And we've done the budget entries before, so this shouldn't be anything new for you. Our estimated revenues are $2,774,000. I'll go back and add my commas. Our budget appropriations are $2,693,000, and we have a budgetary fund balance of $81,000. And so I have no entries for this one in my subsidiary ledgers, so we don't have to worry about that there. Now, in my general fund, my estimated revenues ledger. I'll be so glad when you start working in the practice set too, because I think that's really going to help you tie all this together. And so what we'll do here, and then also we'll have our appropriations ledger. We'll list out our budget items so that you can see those and how they impact our subsidiary ledgers. Okay, so all I've done is taken the information from the budget and showed that those entries by classification in my subsidiary ledger. Okay, that's all I did for that one. And now we're going to move on into number 2. This is number 1. This takes care of the requirements for the information we were given in number 1. So now we're going to move on into number 2. And in number 2, we have encumbrances issued against the appropriations. Okay, so I entered my general fund debit and credits for the encumbrances, and then in my ledger, which is my subsidiary ledger, I came over here and entered each one of those encumbrances. Okay, so that takes care of that one. So now I'm going to move on to the information given to us in part 3, which is the current year's tax levy. And again, we've got some general fund. We've got taxes receivable current. We just did this work in another problem, so hopefully this one is, you knew exactly what to do on this one. We have an allowance as was given to us in the problem. Make sure when you do these you're paying attention to the current, because that makes a huge difference in the way that these are recorded and represented in the financial statements. And then the difference between the two would be our revenues. And so our allowance was given to us at $65,000, which leaves $1,940,000 as revenue. Okay, and then you should recognize that we have to go to our revenue ledger. And we have our property taxes that we need to show. And that goes way over here in our subsidiary ledger credit. Now, keep in mind, we're still in the general fund. In fact, let me add, just so we're all clear, I'll add that right there. General fund revenues ledger. Now we're going to go down here to our governmental activities. And we're going to do the same entry. Very similar anyway. And you saw what I did before when I copied this. And except that one, if you remember, it's going to be a little bit more defined. Okay. And that takes care of number 3. Make this a little bit. There we go. So if you go back and look at this here, you know what we're doing. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to number 4. So in number 4, we received cash of $1 million. Tax collections of current year's levy totaled $1,459,000. The city also collected $132,000 in taxes from prior year. And so we're going to show cash coming in, show that we received some delinquent taxes receivable and some current, and we've got the same entry going in our general fund and our governmental activities. So now we can move on down to number 5, and in number 5 we've got personal cost charged to the appropriations. It says encumbrances were not recorded because no liabilities currently exist for withholdings. You ignore FICA, federal, state income tax withholding, and they give us a little bit more information there. So this one's new for you. And so in the general fund, what we will do is show expenditures for 2020 of $1,750,100, and then we will show vouchers payable for the same amount, and then in our expenditures ledger we show each one of those. And so we've got the general government, and then I'll go ahead and type in the rest of those. Okay, so all I've done is in my expenditure ledger, in my subsidiary of the general fund, I have gone in and entered the detail to support this entry. And then from there, I go into my governmental activities. And I show my expenses, general government. I show my expense, public safety. I show my expense, public works. My expense, health and welfare. And those show up as a debit in the general ledger of the governmental activity. So make sure you're kind of following where I am and what I'm doing. It can be a bit confusing, I understand that. And then my credit goes to vouchers. Let's scoot that up a little bit more. Vouchers payable. Also in my governmental activities. Okay. Now I'm going to move on to number 6, and in number 6 we have invoices for all items ordered during the prior year were received and approved for payment in the amount of $14,470. It also tells us that the encumbrances had been recorded in the prior year for $14,000. So the first thing we have to do is reverse, and we're in our general fund. I need to make sure I always tell you that. We're in our general fund. So we need to reverse those encumbrances. And those are from the prior year. And they were booked at $14,000, so we are basically reversing that entry for $14,000 in the general fund. And then we go into our encumbrances ledger. $2019 still. Now remember, general fund encumbrances ledger. So we're over here in the subsidiary ledger, and we are looking at public safety, $14,000. And then we have in our expenditures 2019, and then this is kind of, pay attention here what we do. Expenditures 2020, because what we have to do is show that 14,000 here that we had in 2019, but it costs more, so that's actually going to go against our 2020. So then we have vouchers payable, $14,470. In the expenditures ledger, $2020, we have public safety, $470. And then for our expenditures ledger, 2019, public safety, we have the $14,000. I really want that to be $140,000 for some reason. I can't do it. There we go. Okay, and then finally, in our governmental activities, we have expenses, public safety, and then we credit vouchers payable. And that's the $14,470. Go back, make sure you understand where we are when we do these. It's so important that you get a good handle on where we are when we're making these entries. General fund versus governmental activities, subsidiary versus general ledger. And then finally, not finally, there's two more. In number 7, we have invoices which were received and approved. So the first thing I did is my general fund, I reversed my encumbrances, and then I went into my encumbrances ledger, general fund, and I credited those amounts that were given to me, okay? And then I've got expenditures, 2020. And the reason these are different is because I had an estimate up here, and this is my actual. So that's my actual expenditure. And then I have vouchers payable, $850, $500. So you reverse what you encumbered in the general fund and in the ledger, and then you show the expenditure. And then you show the expenditure ledger. I really hope you're starting to see the patterns or the process that we go through. And on the expenditure ledger, I'm actually just going to copy these. If you have good governmental software, it'll take care of a lot of this for you as well. And those are going to be debits in my subsidiary ledger. Then I go to my governmental activities. So outside my general fund, my governmental activities. And I'm going to show these as expenses, each one. General government all the way down. Okay, so I showed each of those as expenses. My general government includes my miscellaneous per the directions. So I did that as they indicated. And then in number 8, we have revenue collected. And so we go into our general fund and we show that revenue collected. Okay, so I show my cash in my general fund. I show my cash received as revenues, and then I go to my revenues ledger to show the detail, licenses and permits over here in my subsidiary and breaking down this number. Then I go to my governmental activities again, show my cash. This cash is not getting booked twice, so to speak. Cash only came in one time, but we have to show general fund and show governmental activities. So this is where you're going to start seeing some of that. Like, if you don't know what you're looking at, if you've never seen governmental accounting and you just jump into this, it's going to look like you recorded cash twice. You aren't. And then you've got your program revenues and general revenues, and I could give a little more detail here, but I'm running out of time. So we're going to jump over then to number 9. And here you're just going to see we simply paid our vouchers payable.